Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, a show on the human stories behind indie game development. This is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, writer, narrative designer, and senior content manager in social media, as you guys already know by now. So today's episode is very special. It's Indie Diary number 52, and it's with InkForge Studios, a very small indie studio from the UK. I met some of the team at WAS this year in April. As you can see, it took me a while to get together with the team and actually record something, but the team is working on a beautiful, beautiful little game called I'll Be Brave Tomorrow, and already from the title you can tell it's something that I would very much love to play, because it's the kind of game that usually leaves me with something, which is generally tears. So yeah, before we get into this episode, I want to shout out to Zagini, Fishbump Dev, and Pelik, my amazing Patreons. You guys are incredible, and I love having your support every single month. Thank you so much. If you too, listeners, want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/theindiediarist. Take a look at all the tiers for my Patreon supporters, which include, access to episodes in advance and a lot more. So yeah, let's get into episode 52. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, a show on the human stories behind indie game development. This is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf. As you've heard from the intro, you can call me Ant, as these two lovely gentlemen will do. And this episode comes from, well, at least for me, I'm recording in the middle of a heat wave, so it's going to be very, very interesting to just forge ahead until the end, but we'll make it. This apartment is just very warm. So I've got two lovely guests with me here, and actually I've met the team at WAS this year here in London, and they are Archie and Oli from InkForge Studios. And I'm going to hand it over to you guys to say a few things about yourselves. But one thing that I have to say is that I tried your game at WAS, as you guys know, but as the listeners won't know, which is the one that you're working on now is I'll Be Brave Tomorrow, and it's just my kind of cup of tea. I would say it's just the kind of game that I love to play, and with the story, the overall concept, the overall theme. So we'll have a chance to talk more about it throughout the course of this episode. But for now, over to you, and feel free to say a few things about yourselves. I'll let you choose who wants to start.
Go for it.
Okay. So yeah, we are InkForge Studios. My name is Archie Crampton. I'm the co-director for I'll Be Brave Tomorrow. And my main role on the team currently is the lead writer. So yeah, the story, that's kind of where my main focus is. I'll pass it to you, Oli.
So Ollie Wheeler. I am the lead 3D artist. So as you may know already, there is a 3D and 2D split between the game, and I handle pretty much the 3D side of the gameplay.
Perfect. Yeah. So we'll talk about the game in a little bit. Before we get into that, though, as if you may have listened to some of the past episodes, and you know that I always like to open these ones with a little icebreaker, just so we can get to know each other better. So if you guys could be any game's character for a day, who would you be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I think if I could pick anyone, it would be Sonic, probably. So I feel like
Sonic, okay.
The ability to go that quick and roll up into a little ball and fly away, that's quite cool. I feel like it's a very unique power that I think would be very cool to like put into real life. Yeah, I feel like Sonic would be quite a cool one to be.
That's pretty good. I think it's first time I hear well, maybe not the first time I hear Sonic, actually. Someone might have said it before, not even too long ago. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah. What about you, Ollie?
Probably like Link or something from Zelda. I don't know. I've grown up with Zelda my entire life, and he's just He's just like a classic hero sort of character. It'd be fun to like just kick ass for a day, you know?
Yeah, very
Just
classic hero. Yeah,
be that dude.
just
That
straight
would
from
be
a fable
cool.
or fairy tale, and yeah,
Yeah.
we all love that trope. Well, yeah, I guess. Well, Ollie, especially you've started to partially answer my next question, which is,
Mm.
when it comes to these, this is obviously a show about the humans behind games and behind indies. So I'm always curious to know, when you think about your early years playing video games, like what is your earliest or fondest memory that has to do with playing games? And there's a question for both of you.
I remember my dad took me to Asda because he really wanted to get the new Mario game for the DS,
Mm-hmm.
but he got it for me essentially.
For you,
And
yeah.
yeah. And then like a couple of months later, he woke me up at like 10 p.m. I was like 9 or something, and he was really excited that he got to the final boss, and he woke me up to show me him beating it, and it was pretty cool. And I think that's
Right.
probably
Okay.
the earliest thing I can properly remember doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, that's so nice.
What about you, Archie?
Um, Mine's pretty a little different. So mine was my brother. When he moved out, he gave me his old PS2 because we used to
Mm-hmm.
play The Getaway, Black Monday, which is a sequel to The Getaway,
Oh,
which is essentially a GTA clone set in London. And so,
crap! I remember
um,
the getaway. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was probably my earliest memory. I used to not do the missions because I would have been about maybe 6 or 7, so I think the missions were a bit
Okay.
too intense. But there was a taxi side quest where you could become a taxi driver in Black
Okay.
Monday, and that was the
Mm-hmm.
only thing I would do. I would exclusively become a taxi driver in London because my
Mm-hmm.
sister at the time was going to uni in London, so I wanted to know the area better. So that was my first earliest gaming experience.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, the getaway. First time someone brings it up on the show. It was a wonderful game from what I remember. Very hard for a. I don't remember how old I was back then. But I didn't know English very well, and the whole mechanic of just resting against the wall to heal was a bit obscure to me. So that was an interesting experience. But I remember liking it a lot once that one clicked. So yeah, that's that's great. And well, actually, you kind of answered this question too, like what games you remember playing growing up. But what I want to know from you guys is those games that you were playing in your childhood, do you think they're influencing the kind of work that you're doing right now when you're actually making the games?
I mean, I think our game is pretty dissimilar to the Getaway, the family-friendly nature
Yeah, I
of
would say that.
yeah, I'll Be Brave Tomorrow is a bit more family-friendly. I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe less so when I was a child. For me personally, would
Mm-hmm.
be the games that I'm inspiring to make now. It's more kind of my formative years as a teenager. That's probably more of my inspiration from what I'm putting
Mm-hmm.
into
Okay.
games now. At least I know for the other co-director, Tom, I'll Be Brave Tomorrow was originally named Project Galaxy when he pitched the
Project
idea to me
Galaxy. Okay.
because the game was centered around nostalgia, and he has big
Mm.
nostalgia for Mario Galaxy. Um, and
Right.
so that
Okay.
is for him. I think it's definitely one of the first games that he will like say that he's influenced by and that he's referenced. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Ollie, well, I guess in your case would be more like art, but what would you say?
Yeah, I am trying to think. I think ultimately what it comes down to is I've played games that have a very similar visual style, but maybe not, you know, they're
Mm.
probably mechanically dissimilar or like narratively dissimilar. But I think broadly speaking, any game that I've ever played kind of comes into the headspace when I try and think of like
Mm.
design decisions or anything like that. I think it all it's all accumulated to a certain
Yeah.
point of my understanding of what should and shouldn't be in games. I can't think of any like key example of any games I play, but I know for sure that I think of it all
Yeah.
when I
Well,
design
and
stuff
at this
broadly.
point, I guess the natural question would be there always comes a time when we realize that we want not necessarily to stop playing games, but we definitely want to start making them. And when was that time for you guys? Like, was there aha moments, a sudden realization, or did it just happen somewhat naturally, which sometimes happens for some people?
Yeah. like I say, I think mine, I had a literal like light bulb moment, kind of straight out of a cartoon. It was probably about a couple months before The Last of Us Part 2 came out. So during
Mm.
COVID, pandemics kind of just happened. I've been a
Mm-hmm.
PlayStation gamer all my life, but from the age of about 13 to 17, 16, I kind of stopped. Was a lot more into sports and football. That's kind of a lot of
Mm-hmm.
my background. And then, yeah, COVID happened, so couldn't go outside anymore. Picked up the PS4 again and decided to play something other than FIFA for once. And uh,
Yeah.
I finally got around to playing the first Last of Us game. Finished it within, yeah, not too long. Credits rolled. And saw, just like reading through the credits, seeing the different roles there were. That was kind of a big
Mm-hmm.
eye opener to see. Oh, it's just because in my eyes before that it was just programmers and artists. That was kind of that's how
Yeah.
games are made. Is people program the game and then people draw the art or create the 3D models for the game, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was the seeing writing in it. That's probably the big inspiration for me. So yeah, The Last of Us was mine.
Right, right, right. And yeah, what about you, Ollie?
I think, I mean, I've always like have played
Mm-hmm.
games my entire life. There was never like a time where I didn't, and I've always loved the idea of making them. I just didn't really understand it until I went to stick form, which is like, I guess it's not something everyone does over the globe, right? It's like, I guess like between when I was 16, 17, 18, during like education, I realized that I wasn't really doing what I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be doing. And I like, especially as COVID hit, it gave me like a very easy out. And I left that like line of education that I don't want to do. And I went into a games, art, and design BTech, which is kind of like on a whim. And it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made because I wouldn't be here now for sure. And I'm pretty happy that I bothered to pursue something that I wanted to do for a
Mm-hmm.
long time.
Yeah, of
You know, even if that sort of dream was only ever like a small idea, if you know what I mean.
course. Okay. Well, I guess we're getting closer and closer to the present then. And what I'm curious to know then is how did InkForge come together? Because from my understanding, or at least that's what the website still says, you're all students, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
here we are.
yeah, there is. I'm trying to think how many of us there is. There is a core team of 5. So it's myself,
Mm-hmm.
Ollie. We have our main 2D artist, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
We have the other co-director, Tom. He was the one who founded the company, and then we have a studio manager, Hermione, who runs a lot of the stuff behind the scenes. Um, we've also got 3 or 4 freelancers attached to the company. It's hard to try and remember who's where, but for the most part, yeah,
People have been on and off, I
yeah, we
think.
are still all students. So yeah,
What would you say binds you folks to one another then? What is the one thing that keeps you together? I think I know the answer to that, but
I guess our pre-existing
mm-hmm.
friendship, to be honest. I'm not sure. Like, obviously, we all have the same vision and we all care for the same product, but we for sure, I don't think a day goes by that we aren't just
Mm.
friends. It never feels professional or um like business esque, if
Mm-hmm.
you see what I mean. It's just we're just a few friends hanging out. To be honest, that's kind of how it feels to me. Everything's very
Yeah,
chill.
that's great. Yeah, well, it does. From what I could see from the website, you guys love to make narrative experiences that leave something to players, and I think I remember transformative narrative experiences as a term, pushing the medium forward and such. And I do think that with I'll Be Brave Tomorrow, you're trying to do just that. And having played it, I think it's now time to finally talk about it. So what inspired the development of I'll Be Brave Tomorrow? And most importantly, for those listening to this episode at home, what is the game about?
okay. So I'll Be Brave Tomorrow is a narrative adventure game where you play as a sick child in hospital who has to find escapism through a 2D platformer. The game is a blend between a Yoshi's Island style platformer and a 3D point and click kind of walking sim element game like something like Firewatch or that Dragon Cancer. So yeah, we're blending the two genres of 3D walking sim and 2D platformer together to create one cohesive narrative experience. I think the big thing for the inspiration was it's a novel. So I don't know if many people have read it. At least myself and some members on the team, it's our favorite book ever. It's called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I've read it, of course.
Yeah,
Read it with my
so
best friend.
I still need to
the
read it.
story of Sam and Sadie growing up together in the hospital and that first kind of formative chapters of the book. And then delving into them creating the games company together later in the line, it was that element of them playing Mario in a hospital together was a really key inspiration for us because the children, video games is such a great way to escape from the real world. And that novel kind of encapsulates everything that we wanted to say. And we thought that the video game medium is the perfect way to tell a story similar to it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, I can see, and actually, yeah, it makes sense. Like that scene, that beginning of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I remember that all those chapters about them meeting in the hospital and then bonding over video games and such. And I think it's my favorite part of that book. Definitely tells a very compelling story of friendship and such. Then it evolves in a lot of different ways, but I remember liking that bit, and I remember relating to that kind of sentiment a lot because I've always bonded with people over video games. And yeah, no, I could see the inspiration behind I'll Be Brave Tomorrow. And well, of course, for those listening to this episode, which will go out in September, as far as I know, or at least that's what the Steam page says, I'll Be Brave Tomorrow is scheduled to release in September, which means, if anything, you are very close to the finish line. Do you have a release date for it that listeners can look forward to?
I would love to say a release date, but because we are working so closely with Great Ormond Street Hospital, which is another side of the game we haven't spoken about, the release date is kind of on their terms. They are obviously a much bigger entity than InkForge Studios. It's a world-renowned hospital for children's care, and so we're kind of they're our goal for the release date. But at least from what we can say is that it will be releasing in the latter half of September. So
okay, well, that's already pretty good to know. Well, but with the fact that you're very close to the finish line, that means you may have learned a few things along the way. So would you say there is a particular specific development challenge, even from your perspective, Ollie, that has left a mark on you and that you may want to share with other devs so that they can find some takeaways or as a big learning?
It's tough. I think, like, I don't know. Talking to people in the community, I think, is the biggest thing. I think, especially with the approach of doing it with a charity, it cannot be overstated how useful it is to just kind of talk and ask people for things. Whilst I might have not done a great deal of that myself, it's very clear regardless. Even like we've set up a little Discord server and talking to people in there is very motivating. Getting chances to do things like this and talking to Great Ormond Street and having them show us around their hospital are all fantastic things that we've got to do that have no doubt gone into like bolstering what will end up being hopefully a nice game experience. I don't think we could have done that on our own backs from the start.
Anything from you, Archie?
I think if we're going kind of blankly straight development, obviously I feel like it's quite an obvious one for most people in the development world, but it's the first try is never good kind of mentality. As much as that's always horrible, especially for people like Oli, artists, saying the first try is never good is kind of always a heartbreak. But having, for at least InkForge, us all being friends, you can put your artwork in the chat, or I can put a level in the chat for people to play, and they will be honest with their thoughts. And because we're friends, there is no hard feelings. I think you do have to have some thick skin to be a developer, because you will have to understand that your work might not be good enough at certain times. and it's not people
Mm-hmm.
being mean to you saying it's not good enough. It's to make the game better, and that's overall what
Yeah.
everyone wants. Even if that might hurt your ego at the time, it's definitely worth it in the long run.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's very fair point. And I always say this when it comes to the creative arts: is you should always be willing to kill your darlings, so to speak. Like, because sometimes that might not exactly work as you intended it to work. Sometimes it might not work out as you wanted it to work out. And sometimes you just have to let go, because you know that you're doing something for yourself, yes, but you're also doing it for other people. Most of the times, if anything. So, or most people should be. So yeah, I think that is very sound advice. And we're getting close to the core of what the Indie Diaries is about. But before that, I want to ask you one last question about the game. Why do you think your game story deserves to be told?
That's a big question you asked.
That's a tough question.
I know. I'm aware.
I would say, for myself and my co-director Tom, the main thing for his side would be his own childhood experiences. So he was a patient at Great Ormond Street Hospital. I think his
Mm-hmm.
mum told us he was there since he was about a week old. He's 20
Yeah.
now and still is currently visiting Great Ormond Street. He had surgery only about a month ago there, still visiting regularly. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
it's telling a very personal story for him is something that's quite important. For me specifically, even though I haven't lived that experience, I think being able to tell a narrative story where, like I've said to a lot of people, where my goal is by the end of the story, hopefully you're crying. Quite broadly, I want players to be upset playing the game. I want you
Yeah.
to almost at some points maybe dislike how the story goes, because we're trying to make this as real as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
I think just telling an emotional story that can translate from someone that's 10 years old to someone that's 40 years old and still get the same gameplay experience and enjoy it the same amount is quite
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yeah, I can relate. I can see where you're coming from, and also the motivations behind this game. And I think the story behind it is so strong. The concept behind it is so strong, that it is definitely something that deserves to be told. And also, as a writer, I can relate with the fact that you want to just make people cry, because that is the most fulfilling feeling ever. Especially if it's someone you care about. Like recently, I started writing more stories for a person that is very dear to me, and their reaction is always incredible. So it pays off all that hard work, and especially knowing that some other people at some point might read those stories, and feel the same way. Then it does push you forward. You're leaving something with people, to people, and for them to remember, for years to come. And I think that is a very powerful thing that we as creators do, and we as creators like to do. Um, so yeah. And at this point, I guess this is the core of the Indie Diaries, and we've been slowly building up to it, maybe just hinting it here and there. But this is the question that I love to ask everybody, and I would like an answer from both of you, because I want to know from you: why are you a game developer? What drives you forward? And a game developer specifically.
I'll leave you first, Ollie. You can go.
Thanks. I think creativity is a very important thing, um, in that it's always very personal. Um, I have always admired like traditional art and stuff, and that's what I tried to do in school. But I couldn't do that, so I went to the more technical side of things, doing 3D art, and that was kind of my in to making games. And I just feel very, I don't know, especially when we're doing things like this, I just feel like I can put my skills or myself even into something that I have cared about my entire life, to sort of prop up and put things towards something that has given me
Mm-hmm.
so much throughout my entire life, especially when we're doing it for charity. That's like that's that's twice as good. I think that's my answer.
Over to you
I
then,
think,
Archie.
yeah, I think for me, it's specifically video games as a medium. It's the added layer of, it's not passive. It's one of the first big, besides pantomimes, which is the first active type of media. It's probably the most mainstream active media currently. And I think as a creative, having an extra layer to mess around with and play with and tell stories through is quite engaging, and it's very fresh and new. Video games are still probably now at the latter stages, but it's still in its golden years. It's still a very new medium. I mean, we're kind of coming into a very nice period of video games where technology has advanced to a very good point where there isn't many limits for what we want to create. And so I think video games is probably the easiest medium, other than something like literature, where it is writing. But for a more active audience, I think video games are a very easy medium to get into, to start making games. I don't mean get into the industry; that's a whole different can of worms. But
Yeah, no,
anyone,
especially
anyone
seeing
with
this year, yeah.
Exactly. But anyone with a computer can load up Unity, if they can, if it's good enough, or if not, they can even load up tools like Scratch, that we all learn as kids in the UK.
Oh yeah,
Tools like that to learn how to make video games. It's kind of a very nice pathway to go into. So yeah, I think it's definitely the active side. That's why I want to make video games.
I think you have a point, because it's something that a lot of people tell me is just, well, some people tell me it's the only thing I know how to do, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else. But also others, which is usually the flip side, is being the only thing that that you know how to do. And because solo devs usually, you're a team, so you're able to split responsibilities and whatnot, and then delegate and what else. Everybody has different roles, but some solo devs would say, I have to wear so many hats. And even in your case, I'm sure you guys have to wear so many hats because you're still a small team. So the games just are able to bring all of that together, and bring together music, bring together art, bring together story, bring together game design, of course, which is at the core of everything. And the result is always something incredible that people will hopefully enjoy. And I think I see what you're saying there. And the opposite side of that, the flip side of the positives of being a game developer, is that there are also some drawbacks sometimes. So what would you say is something that drives you backwards? What is your biggest struggle as a game developer or an indie developer?
Things take a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's there's so much time between the idea and being able to produce something that's like tangible for like an audience. That it's a commitment, really. A very worthwhile one, but I think you've got to just stick with it for a bit, I think, before eventually you'll get some sort of return. And I think that might be the most difficult thing to accept when initially starting to make games.
Archie, anything to add?
I think for us as a team, it's definitely the learning curve and the technical limitations we have as a team. Primarily myself as a writer. I say primarily as a writer. However, for this game in engine, it's been myself and the other director who have created the game in engine. Oli creates his assets, and we'll put it in engine, and then we'll place it to make sure they're all functional. Same with Fred, our 2D artist. He will send the sprites over to Tom, and he'll put it into the 2D section. So I think it's going from, I want to write stories, to game design straight away. It's been a very challenging time, but hopefully we're coming up with some unique and fun bits of game design.
I think you raised some interesting points, and Ollie, especially what you said is something really, really important, which is it takes a long time to go from concept to something that you can actually play, you can actually see in your hands. And it's always a magical moment, though, isn't it, when it happens? Because you've been working on something for so long, and then at some point, magically, there's that moment when everything seems to come together at once, and you feel like, oh, this is starting to feel really good. This is finally coming together. and you can see the result of all your hard work, and then that probably pushes you to do even more and get to the finish line. Tired as you
Absolutely,
might be.
especially when like looking back on like previous versions of
Yeah.
the game,
Mm-hmm.
and that like is very like it becomes very obvious like how far things have come.
Yeah.
Because I think as you're like doing it day by day, I think you get a bit lost in it maybe, but the comparison is always what I
Totally.
like to see.
Yeah, and I remember an interesting trend. When there was the whole GTA 6 leak from Rockstar Games, where you could see like very early development footage and whatnot, and game developers from all over the world basically shared their prototypes. Even Cult of the Lamb did something like that, and we're like, "This is how Cult of the Lamb looked at the beginning." Do you have any idea how much work goes into a game before it gets to this stage instead? And it's always fascinating to look at the beginning and then see how far you've come, as you say. So yeah, I totally see what you're saying there. Right. Well, I guess we are very close to the end. This episode has flown by. Actually, it's interesting. I've got a couple more questions for you, which should be a little bit more. Well, one is introspective. One will be a little bit more fun, and then we'll have some parting words. But first, the first of these will be: imagine writing a letter or a note to yourself, but I don't know, 10 years younger. What would you say?
I think I would say to myself 10 years prior, to keep
Mhm.
playing video games, to
Mhm.
maybe not try and follow the trend and just forget about it and think it's not fun or cool to play video games anymore. Keep playing,
Yeah.
and if I do keep playing video games, make sure that I keep a hobby that is outdoors and keep healthy. Because being a developer, being sat at a desk for 8 to 10 hours a day is not good for your health. So to go outside,
Yeah.
get
Nope.
some exercise in, yeah, that is definitely something I would
Yeah.
say.
Ollie.
This is very tough. I mean, very similar, obviously, keep playing video games,
Mhm.
but that's what I would have done anyway. So I think maybe starting sooner. I
Mm.
didn't like my skills are like primarily 3D modeling. Then if I started that even a year sooner, um, I'd be a year further now and much better because of it.
Well, but that's already pretty good. And actually, it's one of my biggest regrets with a lot of things that I've done in life. Just why the hell haven't I started sooner? Why the hell didn't I start before? Like music is one of the I am a well. I don't know if I'm a former or a current musician, I guess, but I did study music for 3 years, and I can play guitar, I can play piano, but I feel like I wanted to do it more and do it sooner. Especially piano, I wanted to do it more and do it sooner. Um, but you know what? At some point, you feel like, yeah, I've done exactly what I had to do in exactly the time that I wanted to do it. So now I can catch up on all the things that I wanted to do before. But now I have this kind of knowledge and self awareness, and I think I can go forward from there. So yeah, I suppose it's never too late. Yes, we may have wasted some years doing some other stuff, but it's fine because we were doing something else, and presumably those things were making us happy. So I guess that's the kind of silver lining there. Um, and lastly, if you had unlimited budget and time, what game do you think you would create, or would you want to create?
I'm trying to think. I think for me,
Would you do a Sonic, Archie?
I have a big thing for science fiction, but the
Right.
caveat is not space sci-fi. I really like
Yeah.
Earth-bound sci-fi. So, Blade Runner,
Yeah.
Cyberpunk, that
Uh huh.
neon
Mm-hmm.
esque world. That is just that is the bread and butter. So I think unlimited budget. I make a Cyberpunk competitor. Maybe it's not open world. Maybe it's more of a linear game, kind of Last of Us style. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Cyberpunk world
Yeah.
would be the
Right.
big dream. Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting dream. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And Ollie, what about you?
I guess if I was to do anything, I love like like a good horror game,
Mm.
like the Amnesia series.
Oh,
very
Amnesia,
cool.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
very narrative heavy too. I
Mhm.
think that's quite topical. um, but I don't know. I don't have a good answer really, but something scary. I think.
Something scary. Yeah, no, that's a good answer though. Something scary. I think it works. So yeah. Well, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you and chatting about InkForge, about I'll Be Brave Tomorrow, and all the great things that you guys are doing, motivations and such. I think we touched upon some really important points here, especially in terms of creativity and just a lot of other stuff. I'd say. So it's time for some parting words now. Where can other people find you? And if they do, what is the best way to support you?
Okay. We are InkForge Studios on every platform, every social media at InkForge Studios. And you can wishlist I'll Be Brave Tomorrow on Steam now, or if you're listening to it and it's already out, please buy it. Hopefully, at some point in time, it will be coming to all the other major consoles. That's still an in the works progress, but hopefully, if everything does come through, we will port it to the major consoles. And if you do buy the game, 50% of all the revenue goes to Great Ormond Street Hospital. So if you buy the game for a tenner, we'll give £5 to Great Ormond Street Hospital.
Amazing. Of course, I will put all of these links in the description of the episode so people can go and check you out. So again, thank you guys. It's been amazing talking to you. It's been a lovely episode and a lovely chat. And I wish you all the best with InkForge and I'll Be Brave Tomorrow, which I will most definitely play either myself or on the YouTube channel. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
All right, friends, travelers, that's a wrap on a new episode of the Indie Diaries podcast, Indie Diary number 52. Thank you to Archie and Oli for wanting to come into the show, and I truly can't wait for I'll Be Brave Tomorrow to come out. Please wish us the game, and please get the game once it comes out for £10 or $10, wherever you are, because it does help support a very, very important cause. And it's just the kind of thing that I like to highlight on the show. So if you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe for more and leave a rating. There's even more coming. There's a lot more episodes scheduled for the rest of the year. I will get to at least, it looks like I will get to at least 60 episodes before the end of the year. So I'm going to the very interesting rate of 30 per year. That is really nice. Please leave a rating, please follow InkForge everywhere, and of course, if you want to support the show, you can go on patreon.com/theindiediarist, check out all the tiers. One of the tiers that start from £4.99 per month even includes a access to an archive of unedited video episodes from a certain point onwards of the show. So that is a nice benefit if you do like this kind of content from yours truly. You can also follow me on all social media. You can join the Discord server, and yeah, I guess I will see you online. Lastly, if you're an indie game developer yourself, please get in touch, because I would love to let my listeners know about your story, just like I did with the InkForge folks over here. So I'll speak to you next time for Indie Diary number 53.